Welcome to Flawless TV. In this episode, it's everything turkey. We are going to cover where to buy your turkey, what size turkey is best for you, why it is so important to brine your turkey, and of course, how to prepare and carve your turkey. I'm also going to teach you every tool that you'll need for a flawless feast. Let's talk about the tools you'll need for a flawless feast. First and foremost, you're gonna need a really good turkey roasting pan with a V-rack. You can see the V-rack totally comes separate from the roasting pan, and you'll see why that's important. It's also important not to use those flimsy, disposable ones. We're dealing with a very heavy bird, and the last thing I want to see you do is have it slip out of your hands because the structure of the pan is flopping around on you. You'll also need some heavy-duty aluminum foil. This is a fantastic tool. It is a gravy separator. It separates the fat, if you will, from the gravy drippings. Brining bags. Brining a turkey is so important for moisture and for flavor of the meat. So don't forget to pick some of these up. And then nuanced with my preparation of a big bird, you're gonna need some clean kitchen towels. I love to buy these in large packages. I think they come in 12 packs. Just some easy to bleach and clean white cotton kitchen towels. These are really helpful when the turkey is done to lift it from the pan. And then we have a basting tool, which you use to pick up the drippings and then baste your turkey with throughout the cooking process. Let's get started. I chose to roast an 18-pound turkey this year, which the truth is I always choose to roast an 18-pound turkey. It really doesn't matter how many people will be around my Thanksgiving table. I love leftovers, so I think that roasting a big bird is an absolute requirement of Thanksgiving. I also don't want to get much larger than 18 pounds because the larger the bird is, the harder it is to achieve a consistently, evenly cooked and not dried out meat. So 18 pounds it is. I have brined this turkey already, and brining, I can't tell you, makes the difference between moist and not moist. It also improves the texture. So brine is usually a solution of salt and some sugar for flavor, but the salt is what really matters. What you're doing by brining a turkey is you're actually causing it to retain water so that less water is evaporated during the roasting process. But in addition to making it retain water for that moisture, you actually are molecularly changing the proteins in the muscle. You break down the muscle in a way which allows more water to get in, but it also causes the meat to feel more tender. So you've got salt and sugar for flavor, as well as water retention and that really great texture. Brining should be done for about 12 to 36 hours. But I also, after I brine a turkey, really like to give the bird plenty of time to dry out. So after I took it out of the brine yesterday, I set it on top of a cookie sheet with kind of a cookie drying rack within it, so that the bird was lifted up above the base of the cookie sheet, and put it in my refrigerator uncovered so it could dry out over the last day. Now it's time to prepare it. But before we dive into that, I also want to talk about how important it is to source the right turkey. I always get my turkeys in New York City from DePaula's. It's a local turkey farm that is sensational and has the highest integrity of product. It's also great if you don't live near DePaula's and can't get their turkey to get a kosher turkey. Because what a kosher turkey has been done is it's essentially been brined in kosher salt. So the brining process that I went through for this fresh bird, I wouldn't have had to go through if it was a kosher bird, because that would have already happened. But nonetheless, I found a great source. I've brined my turkey, and now it's time to get going and prepare it. The first step of getting my bird into the oven is to prepare my roasting pan. I'm going to start by covering my V-rack in aluminum foil. This is specifically because I am going to be rotating this bird. Because I'm roasting a large bird, I can't just roast this facing breast up, which is the traditional way to roast a turkey because it looks prettier. I'm going to start by roasting it breast down, which allows all that brine and those juices and retained moisture to drain into the breast. And it also helps the other side of the turkey to get evenly cooked. So I've covered my V-rack in aluminum foil. I am now going to poke holes into the aluminum foil, which will allow the turkey to drain. All right, next I have roughly chopped 2 medium onion, 2 carrot, 2 celery, 2 thyme sprigs, fresh ones, and 1 lemon that I've quartered. I tossed that all together, and I'm going to put half of it into my roasting pan. Now I've placed my V-rack right on top of that. I'm also going to add 1 cup of water to my roasting pan. That ensures that the veggies in the bottom of the pan don't get just burned and seared to the bottom. It just adds a little moisture to the oven. All right, next up, we're going to put our bird that I still feel a little moisture on. I'm going to dry it as best I can with paper towels. I'm putting it, to prepare it, breast side up. First, I have 4 tablespoons of melted butter. And I am going to baste everything on this side with about half of the butter I have. If my bird isn't really dry, it won't look as pretty. The water remaining in the skin will cause it to look kind of dimply. I'm adding the other half of my veggie mixture to the cavity of the bird, making sure it's very loosely filled. Tightly stuffing a turkey with stuffing or with veggies will cause it to cook unevenly. All right, now salt and pepper. DePaula's beautifully trussed my turkey legs by using a flap of skin, so I don't have to worry about tying them. However, these guys are sticking out, and if I let them stay stuck out, they would burn. So I'm just gonna tuck it underneath the leg or the breast, wherever it will allow. All right. As long as it's close and not flaring out, it should be just fine. Okay, next I'm gonna flip this bird over so it's breast side down. The first hour of roasting is going to be breast side down. Great. And then the same process of basting the skin with the remaining 2 tablespoons of butter. If the butter is not sticking, you know your skin's not dry. But this is looking great. Okay, it's time to put it in the oven for 1 hour, 425 degrees. My oven should be preheated to that, and of course, before I start preheating it, it's important to make sure that my oven rack is in the lowest position. We've got a big bird to fit in there. Gluten-free champagne gravy is absolutely divine. The process takes a few different steps. The very first step is to make a beautiful base using the neck and the giblets and an onion. So I roughly chopped the onion. But I started by putting a tablespoon of vegetable oil into my pan. Then I added the giblets and the neck, and I sauteed them for about 5 minutes, turning them to brown the sides. Then I added a roughly chopped skin-on onion, and I sauteed that for another few minutes. Then I covered it so that the onion's moisture would release. And I kept that covered on a low simmer for about 20 minutes. And here we are. The next step is to create our stock from this beautiful base. And I do that by adding 3 cups of water and 1.5 quarts of turkey or chicken stock. I really prefer the taste of turkey stock, so I always try to find it. And this time of year, it's usually not too hard to find. So 1.5 quarts of our turkey broth, 3 cups of water, 2 thyme sprigs, and about 8 sprigs of fresh parsley. I am going to bring this to a boil. I'll turn up the heat a little bit for that. And then once it reaches a boil, I am going to lower it to a simmer and let it simmer to thicken slightly over about 30 minutes. The next step in making the gravy is to melt 5 tablespoons of butter and whisk into it our gluten-free flour. I use 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of gluten-free flour. Next step is to make a roux for our gravy. That's done by melting 5 tablespoons of butter and then rigorously whisking as you add 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of gluten-free flour. I believe strongly that King Arthur gluten-free flour is the best, so that's what I'm using here. The flour in the roux really does need to cook or your gravy will taste like flour. It's going to take about 10 minutes to cook this roux, and I am going to be constantly stirring it. I'm going to lower the heat a little bit so we don't go too far too fast, and I'm going to keep it moving. I've taken my turkey out of the oven. I lowered the temperature to 325 degrees, and now it's time to rotate the bird breast side up. So this beautiful caramelizing of the skin happens on the breast side as well. I am going to use kitchen towels and this silicone spatula. You could also use a wooden spoon. Protecting my hands, I am going to rotate this big boy very carefully. Oh, it smells sensational. Finally, just before I put it back in the oven, I'm going to set my thermometer to go. My oven actually has the ability for me to plug it into it. If you don't have that, you can certainly get an oven thermometer that you could do the same process with on my website, flawless.com. As I insert into the thigh, I try to get as deep as possible without touching the bone. The internal temperature of the thigh needs to be between 170 and 180 degrees. I'm gonna set my probe for 175. The gravy has reduced, or rather the stock has reduced beautifully over the 30 minutes. It's now time to strain it. I'm using a fine mesh sieve to catch all those little bits. It smells sensational. Time to add it back to the pot, and then we'll add our roux. Now for the gravy, we need to add our strained giblet stock into the roux, whisking vigorously. I've already separated out a cup of the giblet broth, which I'm reserving for the next step. So all of this beautiful stock I'm going to add. I'm whisking it vigorously to make sure that that roux is dispersed evenly into the giblet stock. I'm going to let this simmer very gently for about the next 30 minutes. I've replaced my roasting pan that the turkey was in on 2 burners on the stove. I wanted to glaze all those beautiful bits that are simmering below with some champagne. About 1.5 cups. Look at that gorgeous caramel color of the champagne and bits from the turkey and those vegetables. Let that come to a good simmer before I strain it and add it to our gravy, along with our separated drippings. We added our champagne. And the fat has separated from our drippings. And carefully adding only the drippings, or mostly only the drippings. You see when the dark stuff starts to end, right there. I'll let this all come together in a simmer and let it thicken slightly. Let's carve our beautiful turkey. There's really no wrong way to carve a turkey. It's gonna taste delicious no matter what. But I think that the presentation of the turkey is really important on Thanksgiving. And sometimes I think that my finished bird looks so pretty, I hate to carve it. So I found a way to put both light and dark meat on a platter, add some beautiful thematic garnishes, and it has it feel just as special as when you pull it out of the oven and it's so beautifully glistening and finished from roasting. So let's get started. I like to begin with cutting the breast out. So I'm gonna do one side at a time. Having some kitchen towels is definitely helpful at this point because it's very hot. And although I've let it rest for about a half an hour since it came out of the oven, it is still very juicy and very hot. What I'm trying to do is to keep the skin intact. It's really important. I'm using a very sharp knife, and I'm going down from the center breastbone, under from the side of the leg and the wing, and then coming at it from the top or the bottom, wherever I still feel like the meat is still clinging to the bone. And I don't have to carve the entire turkey. Depending on how big my Thanksgiving dinner is going to be, I could leave some of it on the bone. And if I want to carve as much as possible, I'm not too worried about getting every single morsel because I have Jason to come back and pick it off the bone. Just kidding. Although he does love doing that. But I love this turkey soup that we make from putting this carcass with the leftover bits and bops in making a stock with it. It's to die for. I'll share that recipe at flawless.com, of course. So now I have a beautiful piece, half of the breast cut off. I am going to slice half-inch thick slices, but I'm really gonna try to keep it intact, meaning even though I'm making slices from it, I'm keeping the form that I cut away together. And I'm trying, because I'm using a sharp knife, to keep that beautiful crispy skin that we maintained on the slices. Beautiful. One little escape skin. It's okay. Now, easiest with my hands. You can see the breast tenderloin has separated from the breast. So there we go. I've just placed it on my platter. The sculpting has begun. Let's do the other side of the breast now. Same situation. Just going in as deep until I hit bone from the side, and then finding the other side of the breastbone, going along the rib cage, and cutting across. Move this to my slicing board. Go, my skin intact. Beautiful. I placed it just at another angle on my platter. I wonder if it's good. Oh my God. I have to keep trying. So good. Okay, back to business. We have our breasts removed. Let's work on the leg next. So I have both legs here. To cut through the bone does take a bit of muscle. The longer a turkey is cooked, the easier the bone will give. But the truth is, when it's at the point where the bone will rotate or totally give, it's probably a little overcooked. Although safely cooked, I appreciate that. But I am certain that I reached the correct and safe temperature of my turkey. So I'm not worried about it being undercooked. It could be hard though to get this leg separated. But I'm gonna do my best to break it at the hip and to slice wherever I can find a joint. So I'll slice through the muscle, and then when I get to the bone, I'm gonna move to a butcher knife where it has kind of slices in it or texture in it that is supposed to be good for bone. And I am going to use my weight and my kitchen towel so I don't slip on a sharp knife and work my way through this bone. Now, this is an enormous piece for someone, but I am telling you, if your family is like mine, there is someone who's obsessed with the drumstick, and they will not mind that this is a big portion. So let's go ahead and set this at one edge, and let's do the same to the other side. I essentially dislocated it at the joint. Easier than cutting through the bone. Okay, we've got 2 drumsticks on our platter, 2 breasts on our platter. Now let's add our wings and some of the dark meat on the back here. So beautiful. I'm gonna first start with this, see what I can get off of this back side. The skin, because it was down, is not gonna be crispy, so I'm not worried about maintaining it the way that crispy skin was on the top. I'm just looking for some slices of dark meat. Let's see if I can pry this wing off. So again, I'm trying not to break the skin, but I am trying to unattach this knuckle, not knuckle, joint. There. Okay. There we have a wing. And this looks like something I'll leave for Jason to attack later. From this backside, I see a few more opportunities for slices. So obviously these slices and pieces are getting cool as I carve them, and we still have to finish the gravy. But it's okay. Because one of my favorite truths about hosting Thanksgiving dinner is that the only thing that has to be hot is the gravy. Everything else can be not cold, but can have cooled, and piping hot gravy will solve it. Despite there being plenty more meat on this, there's other things we can do with it. I think for our Thanksgiving presentation, we have a platter we're ready to work with. Now I want to add some garnish and make it really special. I'm just going to wash my hands and let's get to that. Now let's make this gorgeously tasting turkey look as gorgeous. All right, I have some golden berries. I also love to use kumquats, red cabbage, parsley, thyme, some pomegranates, some fruit. And I'm just going to, fill out some of the white space with this. I think actually I'm gonna start with these beautiful purple cabbage leaves. Take off some of any wimpy looking ones, and as you get towards the center, they get a little bit more structured. Great. I don't mind if it hangs off the plate. I don't mind at all. A few little bunches of thyme. Something here. I just quartered a pomegranate, and I think that's lovely there. A couple thyme sprigs. Oh, I love how that looks against the charred wings. Over in that corner. One. Across here. And now let's drop some golden berries. Voila. You know what? One more. How flawless is that? Happy Thanksgiving from my family to yours. Check us out at flawless.com for our hospitality shop and many more recipes. And if you liked this episode, be sure to like and subscribe. I mean, it's free, and with content like this, how could you resist?